morning, everybody. Welcome to episode 8 of the Momz of Paintball. Again, we're back at it at a live field, doing our thing. We've done 8 of these episodes now, and we've had lots of great discussions regarding youth in paintball and the sport of paintball and what our lives are like preparing for paintball tournaments. And we sort of all collectively agreed, like, now's a really good time to start talking about and sharing our experiences about barriers to entry into this sport, specifically for youth. So we've got a few, actually there is quite a long list of what some of the perceived barriers of entry are, and we want to just kind of talk about those. So we're going to talk about things like cost, time, accessibility, the perception of this sport. That'll be a good one to talk about. The culture of the sport, the sort of pathways to grow in the sport, and safety, and I'm sure we'll probably come up with a few others. So why don't we talk about the first one is, I think cost is a good one to first start with, because if you're going to commit to playing baseball or paintball, you got to come up with some funds to make it happen. Lots of funds. So where do we start with that? I mean,
well, first off, you have to keep in mind it is a consumable sport.
Right.
So every time you are practicing or playing, you are buying paint.
Right. Yes.
And depending on what field you practice at or what tournament you're at, you can't really control the cost of paint.
Right,
I mean, you have to buy the paint at the field you're practicing at. Most of them don't let you bring your own paint from somewhere else.
Right.
So, I mean, we've been to fields where you pay $70 for a case of paint. We've been to fields where you pay $40 for a case of paint. Like, it's very variable depending on where you are.
Right.
And you might go through 2 boxes of paint at a practice a day. You might go through 4. Like, you just...
Right.
You don't know.
It's very difficult to budget.
And that's just practice.
And that's just practice.
We've been to many tournaments now, and I think there have been times when we bought like 16 boxes of paint, and when it starts to add up, we're like, holy cow.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's
you walk out with a $3,000 paint bill for 6 matches.
Yeah. Yeah.
But with that $3,000, it's between
divided
10 kids.
Depending on how many are there.
So for us, if we had a $3,000 paint bill, that's between 9, 8 kids.
You divide it up.
Yeah, so we'll divide it up and split it, because we'll do team paint, which can help with costs.
Right.
But not even just the paint. If you start looking at the gear that it takes to participate. I mean, I know we got our son the new Hydra whatever pants. What are they called? The kinetic pants that came out, because they keep blowing out the knees. So we got him these new pants. I'm like, these are like $200 pants for you to roll around in the dirt and slide through and become like, these are the most expensive pants in our house for you to run around and destroy them.
Yeah.
And I will say we have parents, like for us, because we're still involved in baseball, we have coaches and stuff in baseball that ask us about paintball, and I'm like, it's basically if you bought a bat, like for tournament weekends, if you bought a bat on Saturday, you hit with it 3 or 4 times, and then as you're walking out of the tournament, you just dump it in the trash can.
Yeah.
And then when you come back on Sunday, you buy another bat that's $300 or $400. And it's a joke, but it's
reality.
It's a commitment financially for your kids to play, and I think it's different because you're looking at kids versus youth, or youth versus adults. Adults are paying their own way.
Yeah.
And kids, they're relying on their parents and what their parents can afford in their budget.
So like the paint is the consumable, which I think that's a good thing to point out. Like that's something you're always going
like
to be
soccer, you can buy a soccer ball and some cleats and some shin guards, and you're good until you outgrow your cleats.
Right, yeah.
Or, baseball, you buy your bucket of balls and your bat.
And your bat can last you a few seasons.
Right, but you do have that consumable factor.
So then the next item, sort of like the big ticket item, is the gun or the marker. And I will be honest, I am not versed with those things other than I hear the names thrown around and I hear the cost, and
they're expensive.
They are. So I say I'm not versed. So I don't think I'm the right person to say they can average between this much and this much. But you're pretty good with the.
So I think you can find, like, you can get them used.
Yes.
You can definitely buy them
There's
used. So you can find some that are like $300, $500 and stuff like that. But then you also can get up to the range of 3,000-ish.
Right.
So, I mean, it just
And that's just the
depends.
marker. Then you
That's
have to
just
buy
the
the tank and regulator, all that
Regulate,
stuff
yep.
to go with it
And the
on
hopper,
top.
everything.
Yeah, the
Yes.
hopper
So-
and the tank.
And the hopper.
For folks or for parents who may be watching this that are, maybe interested, or someone's told them, hey, watch Momz of Paintball. If you were to tell them, if they were to ask, what am I expected to pay for an introductory marker?
I will say out the door, I think for Braxton's, when we got him his very first setup, when he first started playing tournament paintball, we paid $1,600.
Okay.
And it was a used marker. It wasn't new. It wasn't top of the line. It was like, this is like, we're not going to spend any more than X amount of dollars until we know for sure that you're committed and this is what we're going
Yeah.
to be doing. And over time, we've traded markers. We've upgraded through buying used ones. And I will say the struggle with a used one is, unless you're getting it from like a reputable dealer, it's not just like an individual.
You don't know how well.
You don't know
they
how well it
care
was maintained.
Yeah.
You don't know. I mean, we bought a gun one time, and the seals were not good on it, and I was frustrated because I'm like, but you said this was a top of the line marker, and now we're having to buy you another one. Like, I was very confused. So I would just say, if you're getting into a new, don't go to Marketplace and try to find a gun on there. Go to like a local field and
There are
ask the
always
professionals
people
there
there
because
selling
they typically have guns, used guns that are
Yeah.
solid, that are for sale.
Yeah.
And they will help guide you in what
And
your
most fields
athlete
have them
needs.
that you can rent,
Rent.
Yeah.
That's what I was
Yes.
gonna
to
say.
get started as well.
Right.
You can try a couple of different ones out
Right.
and
Yes.
see.
Yeah.
I mean, my kids, Caden borrowed somebody's gun
So that's a way.
for like
yeah.
a long time,
Yeah.
and then he actually bought his own first marker.
Yeah.
A while back, it was a shocker, but he got a decent deal on it,
Yeah.
and then he was able to, he's worked and stuff, so then he was able to buy it
So it seems
himself.
like the
so-
marker is kind of like the big ticket item to get
Oh, yeah.
into it. And then, and I agree, like once your kiddo has his first one, I think it's inevitable then
They're hooked.
upgrading and trading and all that goes on. And I think that's why I've kind of stepped away, like I don't.
And I was
but-
gonna say, it's one of those things you can buy and have for a while, but
Yeah.
they don't.
No, they don't.
They want to get the newest.
Yeah.
It's like an
the latest and
iPhone.
greatest. And, yeah.
Yeah,
It's like,
that's
oh look,
true.
The new one
the
came
new
out.
CS3 is coming out, or they got this new color. I need this, and I'm like, no.
And then the next thing, well, let's talk about, so you need a marker, you need paint, or else you're not going to play. The other thing that you absolutely have to have is the mask.
Mask.
So again, I'm not an expert with the masks, but I know you guys are. But I mean, I feel like those are kind of the same thing. Like they can start very affordable and go.
yeah.
I
Very
actually
expensive.
just saw a JT mask online. I think the lowest, it was like a range from like, it's one of the newer models, was like $69 to $84, I want to say, and it was a whole build. The problem is the kids want all the cool straps and the matching frames and the lens.
You need different lenses
Yes.
depending on what
Yeah.
the weather is,
racket,
or if
yes.
it's nighttime.
It's a racket.
But to get it, like if a newer parent to paintball were to ask one of us, what should I expect to pay for a mask? What would we say?
I would
Like,
say anywhere from $80 to $150.
I would say around $100, $200.
Yeah.
Okay.
If
And
you
I would
wanna-
say don't buy that used.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's my
definitely
only
don't buy
thing.
that used. Don't buy
I
it
would
used.
say.
Yeah.
Definitely don't buy that.
Because the
used.
integrity of it, you don't know what, again, guns are a little bit more, you can have a person
Tech,
work on them,
yeah.
a tech work on them. Masks, if there's something wrong, then you're putting safety at risk, and
Yeah.
that's never,
Those are eyeballs.
yes,
Yeah.
you need
So
your
there's the
eyeballs.
masks, and then the other
Arm
things that I
pads,
think
knee
arm
pads.
pads, knee pads are pretty, especially for those kiddos that are doing a lot of
Diving.
sliding and stuff. Like my kid plays down the center, so he doesn't slide as much. So he's not wearing a lot. He wears knee pads, but not the arm pads. But for most kids, that's also important. And so, where do those usually go?
Like $100
Okay.
bucks or so.
For
I
both.
don't know, $60 maybe?
Okay, $6.
60.
Okay, okay. So there's that.
Cleats.
Cleats.
Cleat-
Gotta
oh,
have
Lord.
cleats. Yes. Yeah, you can't.
Because they
play
leave
in your-
those anywhere and everywhere.
Everywhere.
You never
Yes.
go home
So
with
yeah,
your
cleats
cleats.
are cleats. But is there a specific kind of cleat that a paintball player should wear?
I think
or-
my son likes the ones that have like the cleat pattern on the outside.
Okay.
So when you are crawling, you can kind of dig
Get
in
traction.
better. But it probably just depends on
And then-
where
on
you're
your
playing
position,
on the
too.
Yeah.
field.
Well, and the one that protects the toe a lot
Oh, yeah,
has
that
the
makes sense, yeah.
thicker toe because they are crawling
Right.
on the ground and the turf and stuff.
And their toes are being.
so their cleats like tear up really,
right.
really
I've
easily.
seen your sons.
Yes,
They-
my
yeah.
cleats.
Caden, what am I looking at?
My lucky cleats.
What's so lucky about this situation?
What are we really seeing?
And he has
Yeah.
brand new cleats, but he likes those ones because they're up higher on his ankle and he doesn't get turf burn.
And he did say they were
Oh,
his
no.
lucky cleats.
And well, that's what he said, but the real reason is because it protects his ankles from
Yeah.
the turf.
So once you have all that, your kiddo's pretty much
well.
ready to go. So I mean, at the end of the day,
Once you get the whole setup, your ongoing cost is really just going to be like the paint,
Paint
and the
Entry
tournament
fees.
fees or field fees,
Right.
depending on where you're playing.
yeah,
And gas and hotel if you have to travel.
Yes.
yeah.
Which kind of segues into our next topic of time,
Time.
the time commitment.
Which can be a lot for parents. Some
depends.
parents, it's
I think a lot of traditional sports, you're used to practicing during the week
Right.
and then having your event or your games on the weekend. So you might have like a Monday, Wednesday practice, play your game on Saturday, or Tuesday, Thursday, play your game on Saturday. Whereas most paintball fields aren't even open during the week.
yeah.
It seems like the majority of your practice time is on Saturdays and Sundays.
Or if they're
So-
open, they're not close enough.
Exactly.
like there's
It's not like
one
you
right
can just
next
run next
door.
door because they
Right.
aren't everywhere. So it really is a commitment of your weekends.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because that's when they practice.
Yeah. I mean, I don't remember the last time I had a leisurely weekend.
No.
No.
I don't
So
either.
there's the practice, the sort of the unusual practice, which usually is on the weekends, and then for us specifically, because our home field is Paintball FIT, they have night ball, and so night ball's on Wednesday and Friday, and so especially Crystal, I mean you
Yeah, we're here
She's
every
here.
Wednesday and Friday.
every Wednesday and Friday, so that's like 5 o'clock. You leave your house every Wednesday and Friday, and you get home at what time? Like
Well, last night we didn't get home until, oh Lord, like 11:30 midnight because all the highways, they're doing construction.
Texas
So it's just
highway.
always like Dallas, it's just having to go to drive through Dallas because we're North Dallas, that it's just,
Yankee Texans.
yeah.
So
And
that's just the practice time commitment. Now let's talk about, depending on the level of tournaments your kiddo is going to commit to, then there's that. And
I mean, even the practice for like tournament prep is different than regular
right, yeah,
practice.
that's a good point. Yeah,
And then depending on the team, some teams only practice on Sundays.
right.
And then, I mean, we practice a lot more than that, but
Yeah.
like layout practice is even more.
Yeah.
We may be here from like 7 in the morning till 8 o'clock at night or
Yeah.
whenever we
Which
decide
we're
to
bracing
get
for
our.
that next weekend.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
on the horizon.
So there's that, and then let's talk about, for example, if your kiddo is advancing to an Excel tournament, now you're talking about significant
Travel, which is
you
more
know,
money, more
which
cost.
is more money, more time, definitely, yeah, all the above. So
Yeah, because
those-
we kind of try and get there on Thursdays for an Excel. So you're looking at Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, fly home Monday.
Right.
So 5 full days of missing work
Yeah,
or
school.
school,
Yeah.
depending on
And then that's
And so
like
then
and
so
then
glad we're in
hotels
summer.
and
Yeah.
food
And then depending on, like for me, a year ago, I had 2 kids in very time-consuming sports. Now I've only got 1, thank goodness. But it's, for those families that have multiple kids that are doing other sports or, other activities, it can be really, really time-consuming, So there's
That's
that.
what I've said. If Bo wasn't our youngest, like I don't know that this would be
Yeah.
sustainable.
Yeah.
And he has older sisters that are in college
Yeah.
and kind of do their own
Yeah.
thing. But
Yeah, and then if you have 2 parents that are working, or just a single parent that's working, like juggling the work part of it.
Yeah.
So it is a lot. So yeah, there is that time commitment that again, I think parents need to be thinking about what's the goal of the kid in terms of their pathway into, and that's something we're going to talk about. But and then understanding what the time is, and I think for some parents, like, yeah, can't be done. Sorry,
Yeah, and
which is
especially
fine. It's just
with, like you said, you don't have a field everywhere.
Yep.
So for us, we do have a field in it's about 30 minutes from our house in our town. And that's where our son used to train. It's a great field. But now that we're training here, it's 3 hours away.
right.
So it's not like you can just easily hop in the
Well,
car.
and that kind of segues into our next topic of accessibility.
Yeah.
That is definitely it.
You know, like if you're, I always say soccer because our daughter played soccer. Like if she wants to go get some extra touches on the ball, she can take her ball and go down to the park because most parks have soccer nets. You know, it's very easy to practice on your own.
Yeah.
If my paintballer wants to practice at home, we have to have an air compressor set up for him to even be able to use his equipment. You have to make sure you buy extra paint to take home with you because you don't just have that accessible.
You have some bunkers in your backyard, right?
We do have some bunkers. Zoom's Paintball out in Bryan, they are fabulous people. Ryan out there, he had some extras that they were going to get rid of, so he just gave them to us.
Nice.
So we have them in the backyard that we can set up if Bo wants to use them. But then again, like you have to make sure you have air, make sure you have the paint.
You don't have neighbors.
Yeah, we have woods around us on one side, so he can shoot at the trees and the squirrels. He doesn't shoot squirrels, but he can shoot at these guys' little bunkers or whatever. But it's not as easy and accessible as baseball or soccer or basketball, like some of the more traditional sports.
I mean, they do have like the plastic little balls.
The jelly balls.
Rebar.
No,
No, reballs.
The reballs that they can put in.
Oh, the little spider looking.
That they can use. But like for me, I'm like, if I get that, I'm worried if my dog or my cat's gonna eat them because if they're shooting them in the house or whatever, or in the backyard.
Shooting them in the house.
Well, they're meant to shoot in the house, but apparently they're not as user friendly as they claim to be.
Yeah.
Like,
we said no to them because we didn't want them getting in the pool filter. We were like, no. But so yeah, I mean, accessibility it's tricky. It's like to your point, like it's not like there's a paintball field, you know,
On
at
every corner,
public park or something, you know. So
I feel like we're lucky in Texas because we do have quite a few nice complexes.
Yeah. So I think depending on what state you're in, you may there may be tons, and others don't have any. So.
But even at that, if you go to the paintball, if you have access to the paintball field, they may not always.
This is Turtle, everybody. He's soon to be guest. Congratulations, Beefy Boys.
But even like you can go to the paintball field and they may not have the airball field blown up.
Right.
Oh, they might not
have rec ball stuff.
You might just it always just
like the
depends
field
on
that
where
Braxton
you go.
started at was rec ball only. It was like field woods ball. They had one speedball field and we love them. They're a heart. Like they're the OG family that got him into this. But he can't. It's closer. But he's not going to get the same level of experience or coaching that he's going to get here. So for us, we drive here, and we're kind of in a paintball dead zone in Texas. Honestly, it's really weird where we're at. There's like not a field for every field is like an hour away.
Yeah,
it's not. Sorry, there's a bug. Texas bugs are giants. Okay, that scared me.
It's like all in my face.
So yes, accessibility is a big thing.
Yeah.
And then you hear of other states like Montana that have no fields.
Yeah.
At all, and that's sad that there's not even one field that they can attempt to go to.
So it's definitely a legit barrier for some people. Like, and I've heard people say, "Yeah, I'd love to." We don't have access to it anywhere.
Or they got to drive like 8 hours to go like to a field.
Or even like for you, your son has his permit. He's starting to drive, but the closest field is an hour away. When he turns 16, are you going to say, "Here you go, just go drive"?
No, ma'am. No, because he has to go down 35. It's not like it's an hour of like country
Easy
roads, easy roads. It's
dangerous.
Going through Austin,
All that
going
traffic.
through Pflugerville.
Yeah.
All of those things. And even like coming here, it's a straight shot down 35, but you have to go through Waco. You kind of hit Dallas, like traffic that's splitting off to either go to Dallas or Fort Worth. And we let him drive now with us in the car, and it's pretty scary. I'm like, I don't know if I like this. And I was trying to recall when I started driving, did I drive that far, that quick after getting my permit? I don't think so. Different times, different situation, but no, he really does think he's just going to hop in the car and come up here, and he's sadly, I think I've said this before, he's sadly mistaken.
Good to have dreams.
Yes, yes. When you turn 18 and you've had your license
about 25?
for a while,
25.
30, you know,
You have your own
when we get
insurance.
there. Yes, yes.
So there's that. So we've talked about the cost, the time, the accessibility. There's the next one we want to talk about is the perception of the sport. And we've certainly touched on it
A little bit.
on several of our podcasts, but I think I think for many parents, when they hear about a sport that involves a gun, they
perk up a little.
You know, that can raise eyebrows
Yes.
a little bit.
I think even Lauren commented on it whenever she
did,
was
yeah,
on.
yeah,
Her
with her
parents were like killing people and
yes.
chasing them down with a gun.
Right.
Just like the idea of that. And
Yeah.
you know, I mean, some people even compare it to the video games that they're playing.
Right.
Like, oh, now
Yeah.
it's like video games in real life.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you have to get a little bit, you have to look a little bit more in depth. Like there's
Right.
a lot that goes on the field.
It's like
that-
chess.
It is.
It's a very,
Very much so.
mental game.
It
It's-
is.
And I think
Yeah.
like while they're not, yes, they are going out there and shooting each other. There is a strategy to it. It's not just like
Yeah.
balls to the wall going out and like you
Just
know
shooting each
war.
other.
Like
Right.
we're
Yeah,
just
it's not
rushing
like
the
that.
field. There's
Yeah.
very much a strategy to what they're doing, and it's very calculated and very problem solving and communicating. It's
Yeah.
so much more than just going out and shooting somebody to shoot them.
And
you
that
know?
kind of talks to like, you know, the offensive side of the game. Now there's the defensive side where kids are actually getting hit with these
Paintballs.
little paintballs.
Yeah.
And I've had a lot of parents ask me, well, does it hurt? Like, and I have
You would know.
purposely been hit and accidentally been hit, and you feel it. But it's not debilitating for the
No.
most part. It's like it's a sting. It's like you know if you go like
like a bug
that,
bite.
you
Yeah.
feel it. But you know there are a lot of parents and kids
that are
like,
scared of it.
whoa. And I think a lot of times that's more of a younger youth barrier.
Yes.
When they get hit, they're like, yep, I don't want to. That can kind of be like their litmus test almost.
So
Um,
I actually have a really interesting story about my kiddo. He started playing when he was like 9, like woods ball. Like he would go out, we'd take him out to Jonestown and he would play. And he finally got up enough courage when he was like 10, I want to say, to step on the speedball field. Well, there was some guests there that were not regulars and adults, and they bunkered him. And it was I was glad I was not there because I probably would have gone mama bear.
So
when
explain what bunker.
bunker-
Yeah,
Okay,
explain
so
what
a
bunker
bunker,
is.
like
Yeah.
he was
Explain.
behind a inflatable, a bunker,
Yeah.
and someone came up, snuck up on him, and just shot him repeatedly
At
for no
close
reason
range.
at close range.
Yeah.
Typically in paintball, you shoot them once and they're out. You
Yeah.
don't have to sit there and shoot them 3, 4, 5 times. It does happen on accident sometimes, but it was a scenario where it was intentional. And he was crying, and I was saying, I would thank God I was not there because I probably would have gone mama bear. And he did not step on a field probably again until he was 12. So those instances do happen.
They do happen.
And
yeah.
the guys at the field, what's crazy is he still went out every weekend. He still went to the field every weekend. He loved being out there. And the guys out at the field, which a few of them are guys that the kids have played with, were like, just keep bringing him. He will eventually go back out there. And then when he was like 12 or 13, he started playing again. And then a year ago, he was told about the MECX here. And that's when he was like, okay, I'm ready.
Yeah.
So it does happen.
Yeah.
I wish I would have known that it happened because I feel like as a parent, I could have prepared him for that. Look, this could happen. It's okay. It's okay if it scares you. It's okay if it hurts. And I feel like if I could have better prepared him for that, then it wouldn't have taken him as long to get back out on the field.
But I think that's a very common thing that happens
Yes.
to a lot of kids. And
Yes.
I think for parents, if you are a parent that has a kid that really, really, really want to do this, really be ready for that. Be ready
Yes.
for their first sting.
Yeah.
Because regardless, like I think most kids are gonna be like, yikes, okay, do I want to do this or not? And a lot of kids do have that terrified reaction and don't want to do it. And I think it's common. You know?
And they will be
Yeah.
covered in bruises.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
do not. I think my kid has a permanent scar on his neck now
Yeah.
from a little paintball.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
they're gonna take their shirt off, and you're gonna
Yeah.
be like, oh wow, you're
Yeah.
black and blue and green.
Yeah.
Okay. It is.
And they have resources you can send to the school because when he first started playing, I would send a note
Yeah,
to the school every year
Oh,
that
yeah.
said like,
I'm not abusing my child.
Yes.
This is their
But
sport
like
of
in
choice.
football, it's the same thing because
Oh,
Kaden
yeah.
played football, tackle football in kindergarten, and they had him, a little tiny skinny baby. They had him on defense, and he literally was covered. His arms were just covered in bruises, and I'm like, I swear,
Yeah.
I'm not beating this
Yeah.
child. He's
Yeah.
playing football, like he's playing tag
Yeah.
football. So it's kind of similar to other sports as
Right.
like the bruises and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's nothing.
I would say
like,
even
crazy.
talking about like bruising and injury or whatever, you don't see as many injuries really
Yeah,
out here at the
that's a
paintball
really,
field.
really good point.
Because
Yeah.
it's not full contact. It's not a contact sport.
I
other
think
than
the scariest
hitting with
injury
paintballs.
that I've seen is when kids or adults core sample is what they call it. So
Yes.
when they're sliding, the barrel of their marker goes into the ground instead of being parallel to the ground, and it can cause their tank
to hit
to
them.
hit them wherever. It could be your chest, your stomach, your shoulder. That's been the scariest injury we've had.
And my kiddo has core sampled really badly twice and bent
Uh,
his barrel. And it was when he was practicing in the backyard one time. He core sampled in the backyard, and it snapped, and it went up into his ribs. So again, not to spook anybody,
Yes.
but yeah, just like.
But you know what I
other
found?
sport.
They usually do that like once or
And-
twice, and they've learned their lesson real quick.
They're like,
it
oh,
doesn't
when I
usually-
slide, I need to get my gun out.
Yeah, and that's
Yeah.
why they say hold my gun up. And it usually, like for my kid, it happened at the end of it. It was the second day of a tournament.
When they're tired.
They're tired. They're, that's why the conditioning is so important.
my
and
gosh,
the
so
practicing,
important.
like sometimes they're like, why are we training for this? Because your body needs to be able to
Yeah.
withstand a full weekend
Yeah.
of practice,
Exactly.
tournament, whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, but you don't see other than Colt, like the torn ACLs or the sprained ankles. You
don't see it as
see a
much.
lot of that.
Well, I think my biggest thing too is the heat.
Yeah.
Just overheating or being dehydrated, or because like Kaden, one tournament, we were in August, I think.
Yeah, it was here.
It was here,
August.
and it was August or something.
August in
really,
Texas, if you don't know, you just
it was
don't want to be
miserable.
here.
So, and they actually changed their tournaments now, not to
Yeah.
even do it in August. But like he got so overheated, like he was about to pass out. They had a cool room, so we moved him to the cool room. Then we moved him to the paint
I would
truck.
say the paint truck is a good
and
place.
then just like kind of try to bring his body temperature down. Then I eventually was like, well, I'll just take him and go get an IV.
Yeah.
And so, and some places do have like
IV stations?
IV stations to hydrate
Yeah.
kids and stuff,
Some
or
tournaments, yeah.
people, not kids. But that would be my biggest concern.
Which is why
the-
we're
the
constantly
weather.
pushing the electrolyte pills,
Yeah.
the frog togs, the water, get a little bit of food in them,
Even
fruit
before
or
the
something.
tournaments,
Yeah.
like weeks before, a week before.
And I don't know if that's just unique to Texas. Like we just know it's hot
I
and
think
it's
we just
humid,
know.
and
Yeah.
but everybody really
Yeah.
should do this.
Yeah.
It does make a difference.
But
So
that's,
what
that's
other
my big fear on
perceptions,
that one.
I mean, I can think of more than what we just discussed, but I think there's also the perception that tournament paintball is, they feel like it's kind of a rough and tough kind of sport, and it's,
So paintball brings everybody out. Every different
That's what I was
background.
trying to
Every walk
Yeah.
of life.
Every walk of life.
every walk
yes.
of life, that, yes.
Everybody is
and
accepted
they
and
kind of
welcome.
accept everybody, except for like,
Really bad,
like
bad people.
yeah, pedos and things like that. But,
You don't accept it, yeah. Yeah.
but it does bring different types of people
Yeah.
around, and so you have to kind of be more accepting of
To be more
things.
open-minded.
To
And
be
I
more
will
aware.
say,
and
Yeah.
aware, yes.
I will say, with tournament paintball and what's unique compared to other sports is when a kid is playing, baseball or soccer or football or anything, little league related, you're not going to a tournament where there are then other age divisions,
Right.
adults, mature adults playing at that tournament. You go to a baseball tournament for 14U, it's all 14U kids playing. You're not in a situation where there's other, I would say, outside influences. And Melissa said something really great earlier. Paintball is very unique in, if you're new to it, usually people have to preface, hey, this is what you're going
This
to
is
see,
what's
this
gonna
is what's
happen.
going to happen, this is how it's going to look.
Yeah.
Know that your kid is safe. And
Yeah.
I can tell you 100%, I would drop my kid off here and leave him if I could, if they had houses in the back. And I would know that the people out here would take care of him
Yeah.
and make sure he was safe and hydrating and doing what he needs to do. But there is that perception that it is a taboo, or I don't know if taboo is the right word, but like different.
There's a lot of
So-
adult things that
So like
Yes.
they
go
do,
on,
there's
yeah.
a lot. I'm just gonna throw it out there.
Yeah.
Like we're just gonna throw it out there, down and dirty. So there is a lot of like weed smoking and drinking, and then of course foul language and stuff like that. So for like Melissa, y'all are very conservative.
Yes.
Very,
so
very
I'm probably
conservative.
of the four here. I'm probably the one that my jaw is always on the ground, like,
Did that just happen? And we're like, yes, it happened.
We're okay with this. So like yes, our previous coach did, before Bo's first tournament, he was like, hey, I just want to give you a heads up. And it was not a tournament here, it was a different field in Houston.
Yeah.
He's like, I just want to give you a heads up. There will be people smoking weed, there will be cigarettes, there will be vapes, there will be alcohol. But I feel like a lot of that, when people see the kids coming around, they try to kind of
Dial it back.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
so like my first USXBL was here at FIT, and we came up the day before. We weren't playing until like whatever the next day, and we were walking through, and this is the first time I've ever been to FIT.
Yeah.
And I'm like, big huge tournament, and we walk by this guy who then like sees us coming and hides his bong behind his bag, and I'm like, huh. Is this even legal? And Rob was like, just keep walking.
Just
keep
keep
walking.
Just keep walking. Don't look.
So, and I have even spoken with a couple of coaches because like at NXL, when you're playing youth and the divisional fields are all kind of over to one
Sandwiched,
side. And so
Yeah.
you've got like the D5, which are a lot of people who just come out on the weekends and
fun.
have fun or whatever.
Hobby
But
people.
I mean, whenever we were in Tampa, the smell
Yeah.
was so strong. I was like, okay, I'm gonna get high just
Yeah,
standing
you're not
here.
going to pass the drug test if you,
Yeah, it's a lot. And so I have heard a couple of people kind of saying like, why are we putting the kids right next to this? Why? I guess it's
And
just
that's a
kind of
fair
an
question.
unspoken rule that like, okay, it's fine to do here, but do we have to do it near the kids?
Well, because in some states it's legal.
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
you
And I
know,
think that's where the problem
and
kinda
that's where the
comes
problem
in.
comes in, because they can't really be like, oh, you can't do that,
Right.
because technically it's legal.
It does require us as parents, whether you want to or not, but like for me, I need to have a conversation
Yes.
with my kiddo about
Absolutely
this.
have that conversation.
And just be, and everyone parents differently, but that's how we did it. We just sat down and said, yes, this is what's going on. Like I could lie and say, oh no, that's not what you're smelling, but just kind of give them the information.
Yeah.
You just have to be ready for that.
That's kind of the approach we took too. Like
Yeah.
they're going to be offered this stuff from their friends at school.
Well, yeah,
and
that's-
all over
that
the place.
was
It's
what I was
not
about to
unique
say.
to the
Right.
paintball
Yeah.
field.
Yeah.
It's
And-
different in the fact
yeah.
that it's a sports venue with
Yeah.
youth athletes playing and it's happening. I
Right.
think that's the key difference.
Yeah.
It's not that kids are not exposed to it, because
Right.
if your kid goes to a public high school, they are.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or if your kid's homeschooled and has friends outside of their
Circle.
core
Yeah.
friend group that
Yeah.
they're exposed to it. They're
Yeah.
exposed to it on TV. They're exposed to it on
They can go
TikTok,
shopping. You
YouTube,
can go
Oh,
anywhere
yeah.
and
the
be
internet. You
exposed
know what I
to
mean?
it.
So it's not that they're not exposed to it.
Yeah.
And I was kind of like you. I handled it the same way. I'm pretty sure we all did. Like, it's
Yeah.
happening. It's not acceptable for you. If I find out that you're doing it, there will be consequences.
Yeah.
Type of thing. Because kids are tempted and they want to push the boundaries a little bit, especially the older they
The
get.
other thing, for me, it was
Oh, you're
It
good.
was not just the things that we could smell, but also, I mean, the foul language is a lot.
It is a lot.
It is a lot. And at first I was like, I would try to tell my son, oh no, you didn't hear that. He's like, Mom, please. And I realized I can't control what others are saying, what they're hearing. All I can do is just, maintain
Here's the
expectations
standards
from
for
my
us,
own
yeah.
kid. And
So-
it's,
For me, and I'm different. Like for me, I'm like, okay, if you're gonna cuss, cuss. I know they're gonna do
Yeah.
it. Mine are 15 and 16, about to be 17, and I'm like, okay, you're gonna do it. You're gonna do it.
Yeah.
It's not gonna be a battle. I'm just
Yeah.
not gonna fight
Choose
it.
your
we
battle.
finally got to the point, if you're going to do it, can you just mostly just do it on the field when you're playing? Because I understand that, but, I don't want it translating into, oh, if I can do it on the field, I can cuss whenever
Yeah.
I want.
So-
No.
So actually, JD, I was struggling with it. And I don't know why, because I have a really foul mouth. So I don't really understand why but I was really like, the first time I ever heard him say a foul word, I about died. I was like,
So
not
mortified.
my baby child, please. And so I was talking to JD, who's one of the people that owns and runs this field and has a lot of experience in the tournament paintball world. And he said something that really stuck with me, which is kind of what you were saying is, whatever happens on the other side of the fence as long as it's not hurting somebody intentionally,
Yeah.
it stays on that side of the fence. So he
Yeah.
needs to be who he needs to be on the
Right.
opposite side of the fence. Once
Yeah.
he steps off that field and on this side of the fence, then have that conversation. And it is an ongoing battle of like,
Yeah.
they kind of get in their head, well, I did it over there, so now I can do it here. And I find myself quite often saying language,
Yeah.
because there are some words that I'm like, I don't care. There are some ones that I'm like, no, we're not going to say
doing
that.
Yeah.
It's a fine tightrope, I feel like.
Yeah.
And it's also the context.
That's what I say. How they're saying it.
How
Yeah,
they're
yeah,
saying
exactly.
it, who they're saying it to,
Yes.
Yeah.
and in what tone are we saying it?
Yeah.
Are you
Yes.
saying it to be funny and silly and like it fits the context, or are you speaking to me? Because
Yeah.
if you're speaking to me,
We're having a different conversation.
right,
Yeah.
right.
Or on the flip side, are you a child who just got cussed out by an adult?
Yes.
Yes.
And how do you respond to that?
Yes,
because
'cause
that has
that's-
happened on the
that
field as
happens,
well. And I know
yeah.
my kid, he
Yeah.
was just like, okay.
That
And mine-
Yes.
Which might have made him just as mad as
Yeah.
if
And mine
Yes.
was not. Mine,
Yeah.
and she went toe to toe with them. She
Yeah.
was like, no, you're.
But
Yeah.
like, in what other sport would your child get cussed out by an adult
By an
because they
adult.
just got beat by a child?
By a
Yeah.
child.
Yes.
Or by a
Yeah.
girl.
Like,
Who's a
Yeah.
child.
Really?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a
So-
lot of emotion.
I guess
A
what
lot
we're
of
saying
ego.
is if you're
Yeah.
a parent that has very little tolerance for foul language, either hearing it in a sport that your kid's playing in or your child doing it, it could be a problem
Yes.
Yeah.
coming into, because
prepare
we
yourself.
know in the paintball world and in the culture of paintball, that ain't changing.
No.
You know, and it shouldn't, because it's
It
part
is
of
what it is.
And
what
there-
is what it is.
And the reality is, when you like watch college baseball, we've been watching a lot of college baseball right now because the College World Series is going on, or Major League Baseball, they use foul language too.
right.
I mean, they do, and like either whether it's they're mouthing it to the person walking off of the mound or they're mouthing it in the dugout, like. It happens in all sports. So again, I don't think it's a unique to paintball thing. I
Yeah.
think it's just jarring at first.
Yes, at first,
Because
it's like,
it's not.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
It can be a lot.
Yeah.
But I think when you start, and I didn't really notice it in other sports until recently. And the more I watch sports, the more I'm like, well,
It's
they
there.
do it
Well,
everywhere.
I
It
feel like
exists.
in football, say, when they go to the locker room,
oh,
can you
yeah.
imagine?
you know, you don't see it, so it's not in your face. Here, it's just
We don't
There
have
is
a
no
locker
locker
room.
room.
there's no locker
Yeah.
room. There's no like
There's no
places where you
dugout,
can
right.
go to
Yeah.
like have those meetings.
Right.
So it's
Yeah.
just
Like I'm sure the
More in
Stanley
your
Cup
face.
playoff locker rooms are very foul.
Very intense. Yes.
Very foul.
It's more in your face.
Yeah,
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 it's
it
more
is. Yeah,
open.
because this is their locker room. Like
Yes.
it's everything's open, so there is a lot of exposure to.
But I feel like, especially here, I know a lot of the adults try to shelter the kids from it.
They do,
They really
yeah.
do. So
And they call them out on it.
They call them out
They do,
on it.
yeah.
They do call them out on it. But they also like will have their safety briefings where they will like, okay, we're going to have a safety briefing, which is code to the kids. You don't come over to this area.
Right,
You
yeah.
stay away.
Yeah.
This is an
we're
adult
going.
conversation.
We're going over here. Y'all don't
Yeah.
come.
Yeah.
And then if they do, like they'll see them coming for a mile, and they'll be like,
Well,
no.
and that kind of touches on, like, we're kind of sprinkling a little bit of culture into this thing right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I can only speak to the culture that our kids and all of us experience here at Paintball FIT, but I truly believe, and I know you guys would agree, that there is a very good culture here as far
Mm-hmm.
as, what the kids are exposed to, what their level of expectation is, not only from us, but from, the divisional players and the pro players and the owners of this field. So we are blessed in that sense,
yeah.
that the culture specifically here, and I can only hope that it is similar in other
Because
fields.
it's,
And I
it's
feel like-
not like they're pushing it on the
Yeah.
kids. It's
Well,
not like they're like,
yeah.
here, you want this, or here,
Right.
try this
That's not
alcohol, or
happening,
try this.
yeah.
Like they definitely are
Yeah.
not.
They sometimes mama and papa more than us.
Oh, way more
Which
than
is
that.
I
Kinda
feel
nice,
like
it
they
takes
hold
it off
him.
our plate.
Yes, it's not me being the bad guy.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, your coach said.
Well,
that
and I
you
feel
shouldn't
like
act
we've
like
kind
that.
of been like, oh, they do all this bad stuff. But I do want to make it clear, like, these are good people.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Nobody is intentionally trying to hand the kids drugs
No,
or
yeah,
beer
no,
or whatever,
it's
like.
absolutely the opposite of
Yeah,
it.
like I would feel, I leave all my stuff. My purse isn't with me. Like I've got cash in my wallet over
My car's
there.
unlocked.
Yeah, I mean, nobody really messes with your stuff on purpose. Someone might accidentally get your kid's arm pad or whatever, but
Yeah.
they bring it back next week. Like
Yeah.
I feel very safe
very
out here
good
at this
village
field.
here,
It's like
yeah.
everybody looks out for each other, and it really is a family dynamic.
Yeah.
But just every family, every person in your family has different standards and beliefs, and it's. I think that was a big thing for me. Was so my first exposure to Paintball FIT, my husband had pulled up one of their YouTube episodes, and it's Colt in the pit getting the kids nerd. I think I made it 20 seconds. I was like, I can't watch this.
Those famous.
This is nothing but cussing and all the back and forth, and I'm like.
It works.
I'm like, I can't do this. But now, I'm like, Colt is wonderful.
Yeah.
He is a stand-up guy. He does so much for the kids, so much for the paintball community. He's like, and I can't even say he's one of my favorite because they're like all my favorites, but it really is. Like when they're here, they're working, and that is their job, and there's emotion, and that's how they express it. Like I really had to just kind of get myself out of it and be like, hey, it's not about me. Because I am one of the more conservative moms. It was very difficult at first. But I do want to make that clear. Like everybody out here, they are good people. Good people.
And I think that segues into like when you were talking about this is their job. If they're making money, I think that every field is different, every team is different, and it depends on how they've structured it and they've set it up. But you know, what is the next step? When we think about our kids, who are most of them are in high school, all of them are will be in high school this coming year. What is the future for them in paintball? I know a lot of teams, a lot of colleges have teams, but they're more club teams. They're not like you wouldn't think of them as a team, like a baseball team, and how that works, and what their future looks like in paintball, and what their path is, I guess.
And I think with our kids, like you said, like, you know, by September of this year, all of our kids will be they'll be high schoolers. And all of our kids are really like super dedicated to this sport, and you know, it kind of segues, like you're saying, segues into, you know, a lot of times parents will have kids in a sport that a kid is really good at, very talented, very competitive, very passionate, and they do think about, well, does this translate into something they do in college, or does this translate into something they do on a professional level? And I've had parents ask me, like, well, does that exist in paintball? And I have, our oldest daughter went through the NCAA D1 recruiting process, and so we're familiar with it. And I had a lot of people in the question world ask me, well, does paintball have the same thing? And so the answer, I always say, the answer to that right now is no, there's no such thing as an NCAA D1, D2, or D3
Paintball
for paintball. But like you said, there are rec teams. Like I know Texas A&M has a couple.
UNT.
They do exist. There's also, we were just talking before we started recording, there are some scholarships.
Emory, I think.
Yeah, Emory has scholarships. Now, so there's that. There's also, obviously, you know, there are a lot of youth, really, really good youth in the paintball world right now that their pathway is they're going to go pro. That's what they want to do. That pathway is very different than a lot of other traditional, you know, like football or soccer or baseball or, you know, whatever. So if you're like the kind of parent that focuses on that or has those questions, you know, as of right now, you know, paintball is not a D1 college sport yet. My son is convinced it will be in 4 years. I don't know. You know, I keep dreaming.
You never know.
But yeah, I mean, I've had a lot of conversations with parents and, you know, saying, well, what's next? What's the next step? Like if the kids have, you know, won World Cup in youth, what's next? Like, well, obviously they go into divisionals, and we've had podcasts like that, but what does it mean, like when the kids graduate high school? Do they keep playing? Do they go off to college and paintball ends? Or do they not go to college and they join up with a pro team and continue to develop as a player?
I kind of feel like that can be a question for any sport, though.
Yeah,
because
for sure.
Really, you know, when we were in youth soccer, how many of those really do get D1, D2 offers?
Right.
You know, I think there's so much more that you learn from the youth sport experience.
Yeah.
Than just the
So for
scholarship.
us, it was never about college scholarship,
Right.
playing professionally, that level. It's kind of like our kids are required to do something. You're not allowed to just
Right.
sit at home and be bored.
Yeah.
I wish they would pick an indoor activity at some point.
Some point.
Mom
I
is
think
hot.
we're past that though at this
That's
point.
what it is. So for our family in particular, it has
Yeah.
never been about the college, the going to be a professional soccer player, paintball player, whatever. He
Yeah.
would love to be a professional paintball player.
Yeah.
And if that happens, that's
It
great.
has.
But that's not the lessons we are trying to learn right now.
Yeah.
So, and I would say, like, I have a friend who played at 16, 17, and he actually is a neurosurgeon. So it's like, when we say all walks of life,
Yeah.
we mean all walks of life.
Everybody.
And so he played all the way up until, he played when he was 16. He kind of stopped for a little bit. He came back. And even while he was getting his medical degree, he was
playing.
still actively playing.
See, and that's actually a good story to hear because I think a lot of times parents and even kids think, well, if I go out to college and it's not really a sport that's that available to me in college, then I'm just going to quit.
It's the end of it.
And now, he
But
graduated.
it's good to hear.
He graduated with his doctorate and he moved states. And I will say this is kind of unique about the paintball world is he moved from Florida to, I want to say Pennsylvania. I don't know. We're not that close. Like we're friends and we see him
Yeah.
at Braxton loves him. We see him at the national tournaments. But he moved states essentially. And within a month, he had already found another team that was the same division that he was planning on playing in this season, and was at the first tournament in February in Tampa.
Yeah.
So it's like I feel like aside from like those few upper states that don't have fields, kind of anywhere you go, you can find a field. You might have to drive,
Right.
Yeah.
but you can
Yeah.
find a field and you can find a team that's kind of at your and there. I think some things to look at are like commitment level. You know
Yes.
what I mean? Like, is the team that you're playing with for fun?
Right.
There's a lot of teams that come out here. They practice on Sundays. They go to national tournaments. They're just like you said. They're here for fun. It's a hobby sport.
Yeah.
Something for them to do on the weekends to keep them active, so they're not just sitting at home. Or are we playing for realsies, for serious? I always I've seen a lot of TikTok videos and memes right now going around with cheerleading season happening, and it's like if you're carrying a bag with equipment and I'm paying fees that cost as much as a car and a house, we're not here for funsies.
Yeah.
We're here for real. We're here to play.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes that's hard too, because like you said, I don't know the last time I had a free weekend. Well, if I haven't had a free weekend, my kid hasn't had a free weekend. And so keeping them motivated throughout the whole season gets, right now we're kind of a third of the way through it. So it's like getting to that end mark of November, that's, we're like, oh, well, there's only 2 more national tournaments, but we have a lot of things
There's a lot
in
going
between
on.
then
Yeah.
that have to happen to get there.
Yeah.
But I will say, I think that the whole point of that, I feel like I just rambled, was I think paintball is a sport that you can play at any age.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
At
can,
any age.
you
there's
can
a lot of-
leave and come back.
Yeah.
Yes.
You can definitely
Yes.
leave and come back and still, like you may be having to work back on your skills
Yeah.
a little bit, but you're able to build back up.
You can
Right.
jump back in.
It's not
I
like
think
baseball.
it's a real
where,
plus. Like
Yeah.
that's
Yes.
a real plus for the sport, I think.
And then, like, for the future, there are some, like, for the kids' future or whatever, there are some teams that do pay their pros quite a bit of money to play. So there could be a possibility.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of like the
being-
top echelon
Yeah.
level of the sport, but it does exist.
It does
Yeah.
exist.
Yeah.
It's still there. So if they did want to, like, look at their future and that was something they were
Yeah.
Focused
wanting
on.
to do and wanting to be a paid paintball player, it is there.
Yep.
it's not out of reach.
It's
Does-
not
it
out of
does
reach.
exist.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But just like any other sport, if you want to be an elite athlete, you have to make elite sacrifices. That's kind of been my saying recently. When we've had conversations on the side, I'm like, I can't get him to go to sleep. And I've had conversations with her. I can't get him to feel his body. And until, like you said, I really appreciated this, your honesty in this. Until, like, I can only provide him with the tools.
Right.
And I can't make him go to bed. Even if I take his phone at 10:30, I can't make him go to bed by 11.
Yeah.
He's gonna have to make that choice. But I will say, as a parent, sometimes I have to ask myself, like, at what point, if you're not gonna make the commitment, we're kind of at this point right now where it's like, at what point, if you're not gonna make the commitment, are we gonna continue to do this?
Right.
Because I'm not gonna spend all this time and my time, really the money is not obviously it's an issue, but for me, money comes and goes. My time I cannot get back.
Yeah.
I'm here now, and my husband and my daughter at home. So I'm missing time with them to be here, and that's fine. I love it. I love being here. I think it's a great place for him to be, but I think really talking to your kid about what level of commitment are you willing to make for any sport,
Yeah.
not just paintball, any sport.
Yeah, any sport.
Yeah.
Is
So I
important.
feel like, so we've talked about a lot of sort of the really important and obvious barriers. And so at the end of the day, and I actually have had a parent and a good friend ask me, is it worth it? And I'll be honest, my daughter was an equestrian, so that's
that was
like
even
time and money times a lot.
1,000.
And I've had a lot of people ask me, was it worth it? And the answer is yes. But, it applies to every sport. So is everything that we talked about today, and now the question is it worth it? And I think I know what everyone's answer
I
is
would
gonna
say
be.
yes. Like
Yes.
even with them being exposed to the weed and the
Yeah.
alcohol and stuff like that, that's still setting them up for when they go to college.
Exactly.
When they are on their own, having to make those decisions,
Right.
they've already had those.
Yeah.
We've already kind of given them that
Yeah.
bubble
Controlled
of control.
Yeah.
experience.
They'll hear
Yeah.
mama in their head
Oh, yeah.
saying, "Oh wait,
Yeah.
mom
Or
already told
not
me."
even mama, they'll hear Angie or
Yeah.
Turtle or
Yeah.
whoever else. No, you don't do that. We're
True.
not doing that.
Right.
And it makes them not be followers.
Right.
They're getting such life skills out
Yeah.
here to be their own people, to have their own minds, their own ability to speak up,
Yeah.
giving them their voice. That
And being leaders. Learn
Yeah.
how to be leaders, So like I said, I think my answer is a yes. I'm sure I don't want to
Well,
speak for
my answer is a yes. I said it a few episodes ago. I'm going to be paying for it now or paying for it later. Choose your poison. And kind of like you're not going to sit around the house all day and do nothing.
Yeah.
You're young. You have energy. I think when parents don't involve their kids in something, whether it's chess or
Whatever it is.
mathletes or quiz, it doesn't have to be something physical, but something that's stimulating your mind and your passions, then they fall into other things. And I have personal experience with that. So
Yeah.
to me,
It's worth it. Yeah.
It's worth it.
Yeah.
I think for us, definitely, obviously, it's worth it, or we wouldn't be here.
Right.
Especially with him being my last one at
Oh,
home.
yeah.
I'm like, the time just goes by so
Yeah,
fast.
you
and
know, you've had
now
two
I
or-
spend every weekend
Yeah.
in a hotel with
Yeah.
my kid.
Yeah.
3 hours to get here and 3 hours to get back
Yeah.
home, and we can have those conversations that might not happen otherwise.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. It's
a lot
such a
of
blessing, really.
Yeah,
when
a
you
lot
think
of
about it.
togetherness. So
Yeah.
for us, it's worth it.
And you made a big old family out here.
Yeah.
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 My
And we get
paintball
to travel.
family.
We go to places that, if it were not for paintball, we would have never gone to Orlando probably.
Yeah.
But we made it happen because it was something that he wanted to do, and we got to take the whole family to do it.
Yeah.
I've always wanted to travel the country in a car, and we're driving to Cincinnati, which is crazy to me because I'm like, I never thought I would go on a road trip with 4 people, but
Well, even on the weekends that we're not all here, I'm like, oh, where's Brittany? I missed her this
Yeah, I
weekend.
know.
Or where's
I'm
Kelly?
waiting for
So
a while.
selfishly, we get to hang out with our friends every weekend.
Even during the week, we're like, hey y'all.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's definitely worth it, I think, and yeah. So I think this was a great conversation to have there because we have had a lot of people over time saying, well, what does it cost and how much time does it take, and those are all very good questions. And so hopefully this episode, if anyone is watching it, answers some of those questions
Yeah.
and just sharing our own experiences, which what we're always trying to do because
Exactly.
we're not experts, but we have experience in this, and so
And there's
so, yeah.
always good with the bad, so.
Yeah.
It is. So this has kind of been a longer episode. You got some bonus time there. But we hope you enjoyed it. If you have any feedback or anything you want to add to that, let us know in the comments or send us a message because we're always interested to hear what other people think. And before we close out, we do, of course, want to thank all of our sponsors. Obviously, we're here at Paintball FIT. They are wonderful to let us use their facilities, their electricity. Bug, sorry. Also, Hydra Fit, who sponsors our kids and gets all their equipment. We want to thank Zach at Zeroed Media, who does wonderful editing for us and all of our technical stuff. And Robert Jordan.
Thank you, Robert.
Thank you, Robert, for being our biggest supporter. And we're hoping you're back up and on the air soon. We missed you this past week.
2 weeks.
And you're coming onto our platform very soon, and
Yes.
that will be a really fun
Yes.
episode.
Yes.
Yeah,
For sure.
Lots of laughs, I'm expecting.
So thank you for being here with us, and we'll see you again next week. Thank you. Bye. Bye.